Welcome back to another episode of Massholes with Mikes. It's a two-person show. It's me and Kyle. We watched the game yesterday between the Patriots and the Browns, and let me tell
Together.
you, exactly. And let me tell you, as the title does suggest, the NFL's evil empire is back. Good vibes all around. The Patriots absolutely throttling the Cleveland Browns 45-7 yesterday. Mac Jones with his first three-touchdown performance of his young career. Ramondre Stevenson running for 100 yards and punching it in twice. And I'm sure Kyle's going to have a lot to say about that.
Oh yeah.
A lot of positives to take from this game. Three up, three down, as we always do. We'll start off the show. Let's kind of let's go with the downs first. There's not going to be a whole lot, but Kyle, do you have any ones that you want to spotlight here?
So my first one, I guess, I mean, some of these are kind of superficial. This one I think is kind of legitimate. Um, is JJ Taylor. Obviously it worked out for me fantasy wise because I had Stevenson and Bolden and I didn't have Taylor. So if Taylor had a good game, that would have been unfortunate. But um, Taylor wasn't out there that much, but he really could not get anything done in the few opportunities he got. I don't really think they were using him to the best of his ability. They were kind of having him take these kind of inside handoffs and run right up the gut, which I don't really I think you want to kind of have more zone runs with a guy like Taylor who's a little smaller, a little quicker. Kind of the runs that they would give James White when they use James White in the running game, which they didn't really do, but when they did use Taylor, he was pretty ineffective. And this was a game that you would have thought would have been a pretty big opportunity for him to go out there and prove something, but they went with Stevenson, and Stevenson pretty much stole the day from him.
One of my downs was Josh Uche. Now, I know that we had been very high on him, especially coming into the year. He had a good preseason. He was getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And for whatever reason, it feels like the last 3 weeks, we really haven't seen a lot from him. Jamie Collins obviously being placed on IR this week while Trent Brown got activated to play in this game. I thought that there would be a linebacker spot to be filled. Chase Winovich might be coming in. Who knows? I know he was hurt. But Uche, Winovich, a guy like that, one of those depth guys, Harvey Longy, could fill that spot. And it really didn't feel like they were using Uche a lot yesterday. I haven't gotten the snap counts from this game. I haven't looked them up. But I definitely felt like there was a heavy dose of Bentley, Hightower, and Van Noy. And that was really the three that they stuck to through most of the game. And it worked, which is good. But I was expecting a little bit more from Uche this year, and the last couple of weeks, you really haven't seen much from him, haven't had any impact plays. And there was that fumble from Dearness Johnson in the game, and Uche kind of like rolled over it, and Johnson got it back. So that was
Didn't he?
a
Didn't he
downside.
also? I don't think he had a penalty, but I thought he did something other than that. That was the thing that I was
I
thinking
think he
of.
may have
But
jumped off sides at one point. It may have been encroachment.
no,
Uh,
maybe I don't remember. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. And this coming from someone who loves Uche and loves his game, he's kind of doing. I hate to say it, exactly what Winovich did, where
yeah,
Winovich, his first real opportunity he gets, he seized it, was fantastic. Everyone's really high on him, and then he just fades off into the distance, which is
exactly.
sad because Uche and Winovich, to an extent. I mean, the idea. I remember. I think it was week 6 or 7 against the Bills last year, the one where Newton fumbled on the goal line, pretty much.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
those two together were playing so well. They were both coming off the edge, that was the reason why the game was so close. But both those guys, but Uche in particular, have pretty much kind of fallen off, which is really sad because I liked both those guys' games, but Uche specifically.
Yeah. Do you have any more downs? I know a lot of these are going to be very superficial. It's not necessarily that they made a great impact on the game. Obviously, the Patriots really were definitely the most complete effort of the season, but any other downs that you have?
I put down Dante Hightower just because he still doesn't look like he's playing at 100%. Now, I will give him a little bit of slack because I think he was coming off an injury for this game, so that would explain why he definitely wasn't at 100%. But this whole year, he hasn't looked fully at it. It looks like, for once, I wish Spike King was right, and I do wish that he kind of had decided to hang him up kind of like Patrick Chung did, because who knows, maybe if Chung stayed around, he would have done the exact same thing. But I just distinctly remember on that opening drive, Baker Mayfield had a really nice completion to, I don't remember who it was, but he had Hightower in his face, and it was one of those situations where maybe it was a choice, and this is just me not being as experienced a football player as him. But I thought he could have made a play at the quarterback and tried to get sacked, but he kind of looked a little slow and wouldn't really commit to it, and it ended up being a pretty big gainer. So would wish to see a little bit more athleticism out of Dante right now.
Yeah, I do remember the play you're talking about. Definitely on that first drive. I think it was Harrison Bryant where he just kind of floats it over
Yeah,
Hightower.
the tight
And it
end.
was like a 10-yard gain or something like that with Joe Juan trailing in coverage. But I think I think I speak for you and Jordan and Jacqueline who couldn't be with us today when I say like we don't want Hightower to go because he's necessarily cooked. I just want to remember him the way that, in the Super Bowls when he makes plays and stuff. It's really weird to watch him now, where it does seem like he's lost a step, he's gained a couple of pounds, and he's just slower. And I'd rather remember him for all the great plays that he made, because when he was one of those money players, when you needed him, he would step up in a big moment.
And he made arguably the most important play in Super Bowl 49, outside of the Butler interception, where he literally bench pressed the lineman to stop Marshawn Lynch from running it in. I mean,
Yep.
that's arguably, like they say, even in that documentary, like that was the most important play. Because the fact that Butler was even there to make that interception was only because Hightower made such an incredibly athletic play to stop Marshawn the play before.
Yep. Another one of my downs didn't even play yesterday. Part of the reason that he is a down, Jonnu Smith. And I know that
Yeah.
we keep dumping on him, but at this point, he kind of deserves it. Like, let's be honest, the offense, great execution yesterday all around.
Was he a
Even
healthy scratch, or was he
I think he
technically
was
out with
dealing
an
with
injury?
he was definitely dealing with an injury. I don't remember if it was his shoulder or his knee, but I mean, they brought Matt Lacoste back into this. They signed him to the active roster for this game. I think he was a healthy and active. But I
No,
know
he was on
Devin.
the sideline.
Okay, Devin Asiasi, was he active or was he
Was he?
inactive?
He
I
was
can't
also
remember.
on the sideline.
Okay,
The
that's
only
what I
reason I
thought.
remember that is because on Jacoby Myers' touchdown. Well, at one point they showed Asiasi on the sideline, and then you saw Matt Lacoste running down the field on
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers' touchdown. I was like, oh no, get him away, get him out of here.
Get him away. I don't want to see him anymore.
I don't know.
But it just showed like the weapons on this team can perform. I mean, they made some great catches yesterday. Hunter Henry, and we're going to get to the quarterback's performance later, but the weapons definitely helped him out. It just shows Jonnu Smith, does he really have a place in this offense? You got to I'm starting to wonder. I really am.
Yeah,
And he's the best way that I can put it is much like some of the guys that get drafted early in the NBA draft, these lottery picks. They're athletes, but they're not basketball players. In the same breath, I would say that Jonnu Smith is an athlete, but he doesn't have great football sense. He's got to learn how to play the position a little bit better in order to succeed in this offense. Like Hunter Henry knows, he knows his role really well. Move the sticks
yeah.
on third and short, catch touchdowns like nobody's business. Like that's Hunter Henry's role, and he understands it. Jonnu is a little bit more athletic, and he can make plays if you get him in space. But sometimes you do need him to help you out a little bit to find that like little pocket in the zone that you can throw it to him, and then he can break a couple tackles. I don't know if he's necessarily learned that yet.
Yeah, Hunter Henry had a really like Gronk-esque performance last game. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, no one's really ever going to be able to replicate the skill and just like imposingness that Gronk had on the game, but Henry really had like a Gronk-like impact in that game in the way that he was, there in the big moments, there in the red zone, making the big boy plays.
Yep. Any other honorable mentions that you have for downs?
This one's very superficial, but Devin McCourty dropping what would have been it would have been a
Yeah.
very impressive interception had he got it, but it would have been 45-0 had he held on to that ball. Which, it's no offense, Devin. I just put it in there because
It's
I needed
it's
three. You're a
nitpicky,
great
but it
guy.
would have been nice to be able to say that they had gotten the shutout, just as like
Yeah,
an
I,
accomplishment that way.
I even think that J.C. Jackson dropped an easier interception earlier on in the later in the
Yes.
game, so maybe he probably deserves it more than D-Mac. But I was just thinking in my head about that one
I was
because if he makes that great play, it's a shutout, and that would have been incredible.
Yeah. I was watching the highlights from this game this morning because I just wanted to refresh myself on it when I was going to write down the 3 up and 3 down. And this led me to my third down, which was Dietrich Wise. You didn't hear anything from him necessarily in the tackling game. And I was watching the highlights, and there's one play. It's like a 2nd and 8, and it's like semi-garbage time. It was, I think, the Browns' second to last drive where they turned the ball over in the red zone, and then Hoyer took over. But Dietrich Wise is turned around looking at his linebacker, who I think was Bentley at the time, and he's asking him what the play call is. And the play has started, and everybody else is running towards the quarterback or in their coverage, and Dietrich Wise is turned around. He has no idea that the play has started, and then he turns around and goes, "Oh," and then he starts to run. It was just really funny to me. I had a good laugh watching it because I can do that with a clear conscience knowing the Patriots won. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think we all know by this point Dietrich Wise gets heavily overrated by a site like PFF, or he doesn't really have that big an impact on the game. So down for him.
If he had done that in the Bucks game, then that would have been an issue.
Yes, that would have been a problem. All right, moving on to the ups, and there are a lot of them. So I'm gonna have you list them out, and then I will list mine, and then we can kind of dive into whichever player we want, because I think that we have very similar ones if I had to guess. So who are your 3 ups?
Yeah, so my three ups, I have Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, 2 weeks in a row. Love it. Number two, Kendrick Bourne, one of his best performances in a Patriots jersey. Arguably one of the best signings that they've made this offseason other than Judon. And third one, kind of controversial, but Isaiah Wynn and the rest of the offensive line. Specifically Wynn, but the offensive line as well.
Okay, so I had three ups and an honorable mention. My honorable mention was the tackle spot, as you said, and we will get to that in a second. I had Mac Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, and Christian Barmore. So pretty similar all the way around, but since we can start with the similar one that we had, I'm going to let you take the floor here, and you can go ahead on Ramondre Stevenson.
I mean, literally could not have asked for anything else. I mean, it was the Ramondre Stevenson game. That's what people were jokingly calling it on Twitter. That's what I was seriously calling it on Twitter. I mean, he really announced himself to the Patriots Nation because obviously I'm very biased. Like, I've known Ramondre Stevenson's game for a while. I've been promoting the propaganda. I've been pushing the agendas on him the whole season, even before like the Pats drafted him. Like, I was a huge Ramondre Stevenson guy. But this was an important week because he really showed the rest of the nation and just Pats Nation what he's really made of. Because like Harris was still playing against the Panthers, he was still kind of getting the second reps, and he did have a really good game against the Panthers up until the last week. That was his best performance. But this, I was impressed with how much they even gave him of a role because he was coming on. He didn't practice at all. I was really nervous. I started him in fantasy. I was like, I mean, this is a homer pick, but like I'm really hoping this is going to work out. And I mean, on the plays when the offensive line actually gave him a hole, like that's one thing he does need to work on is kind of finding a way to make a play when it's not there. I mean, that's kind of hard for a running back, but there were a lot of plays where he rushed for like -1, -2, but then he would follow that up with like 8, 9, 10 and be barreling over guys and showing that strength he had. And he also had some pretty good plays in the passing game, and that's the thing that I've been trying to promote to Pats fans about him this whole time. He's like basically like if you combined Rex Burkhead and LeGarrette Blount into a player and made him, faster, not as strong, but pretty agile, and 2 touchdowns, two pretty good runs, and overall just a fantastic day for him. I mean, I could not be happier, and it shows that the Pats are going to be the Pats running game is going to be in good hands down the road in the future.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yes, it was. So I think the most critical run of the game, you might argue. Patriots up 14-7. Browns pin the Patriots down inside the 5, and then they take a penalty, and they're at the 1-yard line. And Ramondre Stevenson runs into the pile and just disappears. I'm like, oh, crap, this is going to be a safety. And then he pops out of the pile somehow and gets like 4 or 5 yards. The Patriots end up going down and scoring on that drive. And it was
a 99-yard touchdown drive.
And it was the one that ended in the strike to Kendrick Bourne in between 2 defenders on that left side. Yeah. That was the most important drive of the game, especially because after they went up, did you ever feel like the Browns were going to get back in that game, up 21-7 or down 21-7? Excuse me. I didn't either. I
said the game was over.
For a team of the Browns' caliber, you would expect us to have more, not respect for them, but you would expect for us to think that it would be a closer game. And I, for one, didn't, and I know you said the same thing, didn't feel like they had any fight left in them.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about that more in the general analysis. But I mean, really, like it was one of those games where after that drive, it was pretty much over. And and that arguably I would say is probably one of the best drives that the Pats have put together all year. Like really, like an absolute gut punch moment when you're pinned down that low after a penalty. I don't know who got the penalty. I don't even remember who it was.
I don't remember either, unfortunately.
But whoever it was, down.
So I have the drive in front of me. 1st and 10 from the New England 1. Stevenson for 5 yards, Stevenson for 4, and then Stevenson for 18. By then, he needs kind of a breather. J.J. Taylor comes in, goes 2 carries for 5 yards combined. And then Mac Jones, 3rd and 5, Kendrick Bourne for 12 yards. Then he goes and delivers the deep shot on 1st down to Nelson Aguilar, which, although he didn't complete it, I really
that
like.
Was so nice.
Makes people respect it. A 1st down shot, like how often have we seen that as Patriots fans over the past couple of years? Not a whole lot.
It's what we've been begging for in like the first 3 weeks of the season.
Exactly. And even though they didn't complete it, I was okay with it because it forces the defense to be honest. To keep the deep ball in the back of their heads. Then Brandon Bolden across for 5 yards. Mac Jones on looks like where's the Jacoby Myers play? It was definitely in there. Oh yeah, there it is.
After a J.J. Taylor run.
Okay, yeah, I accidentally went past it. So 2nd and 10, J.J. Taylor rushes for 1 yard. 3rd and 9. Mac Jones with just a beautiful ball down the left sideline, and this is how I'm going to transition into the Mac Jones portion. Beautiful ball down the left sideline to Jacoby Myers, who catches it over the shoulder on, I think, Greg Newsome, their rookie cornerback for Northwestern, and gets
Newsome.
a first down. Bolden rushes for 5 yards, and then Mac Jones left sideline to Kendrick Bourne in the middle of the field, semi-middle of the field, I guess, in between two defenders for the touchdown.
Maybe the best throw he's made of his career.
Stupendous catch by Bourne and great throw by Mac, and it takes both of them to make that play work, because Bourne, if he had left a little air under that, Bourne may have died on that field. He would have gotten absolutely cleaned out by whoever the safety was.
Oh, man.
He was nails yesterday, and I know I had talked about in the last episode how Mac Jones may be hitting the rookie wall simply for the fact that he's been playing. This was going to be his 13th game. He played, I think, 14 games all at Alabama last year, including the national championship. It was either 14 or 15, I can't remember. But the fatigue sets in because you have to do combine drills, you have to do mini camp, training camp. It's a lot for a rookie quarterback. And man, did he prove me wrong yesterday. I couldn't be happier that he did. He looked sharp. He was the focal point of the offense. I know that they ran the ball a lot with Stevenson, but when they really needed plays, they were letting Mac throw down the field. And it's refreshing. It's something that we've been asking for a little bit now. They're letting Stevenson get him into, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, even 3rd and 8, but they're still letting Mac Jones throw on 3rd and long. And I mean, this is I've definitely been pretty negative on this team. I know you have too at times. I said that they were not that good after week 3 because they had laid such a stinker against the Saints. But after losing to the Cowboys a month ago, they have rattled off 4 straight wins: Jets, Chargers, Panthers, and now Browns. And they've looked pretty dominant at points in all of the games, and it culminated yesterday in what I thought was their most complete effort in all sides of the ball: offense, defense, special teams.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree more. I mean, I don't think we had seen everything pretty much go to plan like that. And I'm obviously not counting like the Jets games because
It's the
Jets.
Yeah.
Like I expect them to be able to do that, and I'm sure we will talk about it a little bit later. But I said in the morning, this feels like a playoff, and it really was for these two teams. There was a lot on the line for both the Browns and the Pats. These are two teams that have a lot to prove. They're not looking great where they are in their division. The Pats are looking better, but the Browns are looking pretty rough in their division.
They needed a win, especially with the Ravens losing.
Both teams needed a win because down the stretch they need to pick up wins wherever they can get them, especially because the Browns' schedule is going to get harder towards the end of the season. The Pats might not be as hard, but they still have some pretty tough matchups later on in the season, so you need to have as many wins as you can in those kind of not the easy games, but in those games where you should win to try to be able to steal those later in the season and have those games matter. And you're not depending on, oh my God, our playoffs hopes are riding on us being able to beat Buffalo in Buffalo. Like, you don't want that to happen. A win today is huge into making those games not matter less, but like making it so, all right, you split 1-1, you're fine. Going 0-2, not the end of the world.
Exactly. And you make a good point because you did talk about the division, and that's a great segue into the next point. Should the Patriots be division favorites? Now, I only bring this up because Ted Johnson, former linebacker for the Patriots, I know we've seen him on the NBC Sports Boston pre- and post-game shows. He tweeted out yesterday, he said the Patriots, if they don't win the division over the Bills, it should be not a failure, but that should be an indictment against them. They should be the division favorites. They should be going for the AFC East. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know. The only reason I'd give that point a little validity is because how crazy this season has been. And the Bills have not been consistent at all. Pretty much no team in the AFC has been consistent yet. I literally spent 15 minutes saying the Ravens are incredible. The Ravens are the team to beat, the last podcast episode. And then they lose to the Dolphins in just an absolute dismal performance. Like, you can't, like, this is the year for, like, just cold takes in the AFC. So I can see that being like, oh yeah, like, the Patriots should expect to win this division because it's been such a weird year. Their schedule now doesn't look as hard as it did, especially because some of these AFC teams have proven that they're not these stalwarts that they were last year. But I still think that Buffalo, like, they have maybe not a coaching advantage with, obviously Belichick's a better coach than McDermott, but, like, I think the fact that they're older and they have a lot more vets on there, at least on the offensive side of the ball, and they've been together for longer. That gives them a little bit of an advantage because they're just probably stronger of a team. Not to say this Pats team isn't like a solid unit; they are a good unit, but it's going to help in those later games when you have people that have been there. I mean, Josh Allen, granted, he doesn't have a huge resume, but he's been there in some important games so far. Granted, he hasn't won a ton of them, but he knows how to win late in a season, unlike Mac Jones. Mac Jones did in college, but he hasn't done it in the NFL yet. Won't say it's a failure if they lose the division, but the fact that it seems like it's so open shows that, I mean, the fact that we can even have this conversation is insane.
I was about to say the same thing. The fact that
Like,
this is in play, massive.
like that statement. If he said that week one, like would he not have been fired? Would he not have been laughed off the studio? Like, are you kidding me? Like people are thinking this team was going to win 4 games, and now we're saying like if they don't win the division, it's a failure. Like, I wouldn't say it's a failure. I think they're starting to tread into 2021 Red Sox territory,
Yeah.
where
There is a lot of gravy to be poured.
It's a fun group of guys. They're really gritty. They're a fun little motley crew, and they're starting to exceed expectations. And you're kind of like, do we raise the expectations yet? I
Yeah.
won't do that. I did it for the Sox. I won't do it for the Pats, only because they're still young. They're still learning. So, like, sure, if they end up tapering off and losing it in the season, yeah, it would suck. But, like, that's an important growing pain that a guy like Mac Jones would have to go to. He'll have that in the back of his head when he goes out the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The division being in play is a miracle at this point, only because if you had told me that at the start of the year, I would have said, okay, because I had been very vocal. I thought the Bills were going to take a step back, but I didn't think the division was going to be in play because I thought the Bills were still the more talented team despite all the free agent additions. I thought that they were the more battle-tested team. They had obviously made to the AFC Championship last year, but hey, guess what? You put a beat down. You've been making quarterbacks look stupid the last month or so. I mean, I know that obviously some of the quarterbacks are bums to begin with. Sam Darnold, anybody who starts for the Jets, obviously, among those. But I mean, Justin Herbert and Baker Mayfield. Yeah, Mayfield's more in the middle of the pack than Herbert is, but still, both of those are good quarterbacks. They're middle of the road to upper level quarterbacks. The Browns made it and gave a scare to the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs last year, and you just absolutely took them to task. And the more important thing to me, not only did you absolutely whip them with a sledgehammer, but it wasn't just because the Browns were hurt. That Landry's banged up, Mayfield's banged up, Chubb missed the game because of COVID. You took it to their defense too. And their defense still has Denzel Ward. They still have Myles Garrett. They still have Jadeveon Clowney. All three of which were essentially nullified. I think Myles Garrett had 1 sack, and they had 3 hurries or pressures or whatever you want to call it against Mac Jones yesterday. That's a testament to just complete and utter domination, something that we haven't seen in a long, long time. And that brings me to the next point. Because guess what? We had a 10 question earlier in this year saying if Bill Belichick finishes, 7-10, 6-11, should he be on the hot seat? Has your faith, I don't remember if you answered this question before, Kyle, but did your faith waver in Belichick kind of midway through the year? And is it back in full force now?
I don't remember if I answered. I can go back and look at my notes and see if I did, but I think I said maybe as a GM it would have wavered a little bit, but not as much as a coach.
That makes sense.
But no, I mean I think that I have always been a Belichick guy. Like, I've always been a big believer in Bill knows what's best, and I do criticize him plenty. Like, a lot of his decisions he made early on in the season, yeah, he was right, should rightfully be questioned for that. But I think it just shows the way this team's been able to succeed that he still has it. I mean, look at a guy like Kendrick Bourne, who is not, he's not a big impact player on the Niners. He makes some big plays when you need him, but, he's not a guy they're relying on. They had so much more talent than him. They didn't need to rely on him. He comes to New England, and look what he turns into a legitimate number 1 wide receiver right now. I mean, he's arguably the number 1 wide receiver on this team. I mean, Aguilar is probably still number 1, but Aguilar is basically at this point being used as a glorified decoy. And Kendrick Bourne is absolutely feasting on defenses. I mean, sure, he has a little ball security issues here and there, but the fact that you can still get guys like that aren't, much of anything on a good team, you can bring them in here, and you can turn them, and you can unlock that potential in them. That shows why my faith never really truly wavered in Belichick, and why I think that, as long as he's there, they're in good hands.
I can safely say that it's not like I ever thought that he wasn't the best coach in the NFL, and I still think that he laps the field. This year has definitely proven that because the guys behind him, Andy Reid was struggling for a long time. Sean Payton's hit a little bit of a tumble. Tomlin kind of sucks this year. Pete Carroll has definitely gotten exposed without Russell Wilson. The thing that I wavered on was the impact a coach can have on a team. I was wondering, okay, maybe the supposed advantage that Bill Belichick gives you isn't as much as isn't as much as it's cracked up to be these days because talent just runs leagues nowadays. Because you have, Mahomes and the Chiefs can just kind of coast along on talent. And especially when they were losing to the Cowboys because of abysmal coaching defensively, and they were making Nick Folk kick a rainy field goal to try and beat the Buccaneers. I was like, okay, maybe Bill's impact isn't as much as I thought, even though he's still a very good coach. This is starting to restore it a little bit more. I mean, they cleaned up how many errors did they have yesterday in terms of penalties? I remember a hold on Shaq Mason early in the game, 1st and 20, and then Kendrick Bourne ran a reverse and got 13 yards, and they ended up scoring on that drive. There's a couple of encroachment.
There was
like
there was an illegal hands to the face by Wynn on Garrett, and it was justified because if he hadn't done that, Mac Jones would have been killed.
Exactly, and it's plays like that. Like they cleaned up. They didn't clean up all of them by no means. But they cleaned up most of the mistakes that they have been plagued by the last couple of weeks and maybe the entire season. No delay game penalties, no 12 men on defense. Those two are the big ones. They took a lot of those, which is just stupid errors. Yeah, exact false starts. None of those yesterday. And it's like, wow, okay, maybe this is the potential that me and you both thought that they could live up to. It's why I was so critical of them early in the year, because I knew that they could get to this point. Maybe not 45-7 against the divisional a team that appeared in the divisional round last year good, but they definitely could have played better than they played early in the year. And now we're slowly starting to see them build into that, a 4-game winning streak, and they're really starting to hum on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if you had anything to add. I left you in space. My bad.
No, I mean, you pretty much summed it up there for me. I mean, I already gave my piece, but they're looking good, and it feels good. It feels good to be watching. It feels good to be watching it. Watching the Pats play like they are right now.
One more thing I'm going to wrap up on here. A lot of people have been very high on Jamar Chase, and rightfully so. I'm mad as a Vikings fan that he's going to break all of Justin Jefferson's rookie receiving records, and Jefferson only got him for a year. But his LSU teammate is far going to surpass the receiving yards, touchdowns, and stuff that he accumulated in his rookie season with the Vikings. But that begs the question, because guess what? There is still an Offensive Rookie of the Year award to be given out, and a lot of people had Chase pegged as the runaway as early as Week 5. And now comes Mac Jones. He's starting to sneak in there. And so is Ramondre Stevenson, but not really. But Mac Jones versus Jamar Chase. Let's say this continues. The Patriots do make the playoffs. The Bengals don't. Is there a certified argument to give Mac Jones Offensive Rookie of the Year, in your opinion?
I think under that condition, I definitely agree. I think because then it would show that because, I mean, it probably in the end won't be Jamar Chase's fault they miss the playoffs, if they do. But it will definitely be because of Mac Jones why the Patriots make the playoffs.
I agree.
I will say, though, I think that it still leans Chase only because Mac's getting the job done, but he's not doing it in the sexy superstar way. He
has no flashy plays like Herbert last year when he won.
He had his first 3 touchdown game. He threw for under 200 yards.
Exactly.
So it's one of those things where I don't think he's going to have the counting stats to be able to get up there. Where I think obviously the way. Not to say that the way he's been playing is bad. I mean, sure, it might not be lighting up the stat sheet, but they're on a 4-game winning streak. Clearly, he's getting it done. Granted, they're on a 4-game winning streak despite the way that he played in 2 of his games.
Yeah. Exactly. Totally agree.
I don't think that Mac will probably win it in the end. I do think that if the Patriots make the playoffs and the Bengals don't, then he certainly has a much better case. But as of right now, statistically, it's got to be Chase.
I like the way that this is trending. I think it all depends on the Patriots' record. Let's say they finish 11-6 or max 12-5. I mean, if they finish 12-5 to end the year, that means that they will have won. Let's see, they were 1-4 at one point, were they not?
They were 1-4.
Okay, so if they go 1-4, that will have meant they have won 11 of their last 12 games. I think that definitely merits Rookie of the Year. Even 10 of their last 12 games, you could argue, can get him into that conversation. If he keeps winning, he's just got to put up okay numbers. You notice that he's starting to separate himself in terms of touchdown to interceptions. Now he's got 13-7. It was really kind of like 1 for 1 for a lot of the year. He's slowly starting to creep that touchdown number up. The one thing I did want to end on, I just want to spotlight some of these other players because I know, rightfully so, it's a lot of Mac, and Bill to start the week here, reacting to this Patriots win. But the other guys, Hunter Henry, I mean, slander has never looked so good on this guy. He is catching touchdowns like a machine. He's making great catches over the shoulder. Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne as well. You got Stevenson. The offensive line has really started to gel.
I did want to say, I did want to say a special shout out to Isaiah Wynn because he has had a tough season, and we've been ragging on him a lot. And he was a guy that I was really high on once they drafted him. After he came back from his injury, his first season, I was in the trenches defending him while he was in the trenches defending his quarterback. Um, I think that most of us thought it was going to be a bloodbath. With Garrett and Clowney closing in on Mac Jones, especially after all the Brian Burns drama. Like I think we all thought that Mac Jones was like had a chance of dying during this game.
Yep.
And sure, he had that one penalty, but overall, he did a pretty good job of keeping arguably the best pass rusher in the league right now, like in check. He did a fantastic job of defending him and Trent Brown. And then
Mike
Onwenu also did a very good job of containing Clowney, and they kept their quarterback safe for pretty much most of the game. There weren't even a lot of chances where he was like running for his life, which week 1, 2, and 3 he was running for his life against much more subpar pass rushers.
Totally agree. All right, that's going to do it for us. A nice quick reaction episode with me and Kyle here to react to the Patriots win over the Browns. Obviously, it being a short week, they will be facing the Falcons on Thursday night in Atlanta. We will be coming to you with a new episode Thursday morning to react and pick the Atlanta New England game down in Mercedes-Benz. Jordan and Jacqueline will be joining us again. Please follow us on all of our social medias at Mass with Mics on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Massholes with Mics on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Kyle for joining me, and enjoy the nice start to a Patriots victory Monday.